The drama surrounding this fight wasn't just about two heavyweights stepping into a ring. It was about a rising force in boxing, standing on the edge of something much bigger, something almost inevitable. From the very first second, there was a tension in the air that couldn't be ignored. You could feel it before a single punch was thrown. This wasn't just another bout. This was a statement waiting to happen. The referee's instructions were sharp and routine, but even in that moment, there was an undercurrent of anticipation. Protect yourselves at all times. Don't punch behind the head. Take a step back on the break. Simple rules, but what was about to unfold would feel anything but simple. When the fighters touched gloves, it wasn't just a sign of respect, it was the beginning of a test. One man trying to prove he belonged at the top, the other trying to show that he was already on his way there. Moses Itauma entered the ring with an aura that's difficult to manufacture. It's something that can't be taught or scripted. Dubbed by many as the future of the heavyweight division, there was already a weight of expectation on his shoulders. But instead of looking burdened, he looked composed, calm, focused, like someone who had already envisioned how the night would end. Across from him stood Jermaine Franklin Jr., a seasoned fighter with experience etched into every movement. 24 wins, a career built on resilience, and most importantly, he had never been stopped. That alone told you everything you needed to know about the challenge in front of Itauma. Franklin wasn't there to be a stepping stone. He was there to test, to push, and maybe, just maybe, to disrupt the narrative. The opening round began, and almost immediately, the difference in energy was clear. Itauma didn't ease into the fight. He launched into it. There was no hesitation, no feeling out process that you often see in heavyweight bouts. Instead, he moved with purpose, stepping forward with sharp, calculated aggression. His jab snapped through the air with frightening speed, followed by combinations that felt more like a storm than a sequence. Franklin, to his credit, stood his ground. He absorbed the early pressure, trying to find his rhythm, trying to read the timing. But Itauma wasn't giving him the luxury of comfort. Every movement was precise, every punch had intention, and when the first clean shot landed, a powerful connection that forced a slight stumble, you could feel the shift, not a knockdown, but a warning, a signal of what was coming. What stood out wasn't just the power, it was the maturity. Itauma didn't rush wildly after hurting his opponent. Instead, he pressed forward with control, cutting off the ring, applying pressure like a veteran far beyond his years. It was the kind of composure that makes you pause and wonder if you're watching, the early stages of something truly special. Franklin tried to respond, but there was hesitation in his output. He couldn't afford to throw recklessly, not against someone this sharp. Itauma's variety was already on display, switching levels, mixing head and body, using feints to draw reactions. It was a masterclass in controlled aggression, and it left Franklin searching for answers. By the end of the first round, the tone had been set. Itauma wasn't just winning, he was dominating. The speed, the accuracy, the relentless pressure, it all pointed in one direction. And yet, there was a small detail that hinted at the fight's deeper story. In his corner, Itauma acknowledged the pace. It was high, maybe too high. Even in control, he understood the importance of managing energy, of thinking beyond the immediate moment. The second round brought a slight adjustment. The intensity was still there, but it was more measured. Itauma began to break Franklin down systematically. The body shots became more frequent, digging into the midsection with thudding force. These weren't flashy punches, they were investments. Each one designed to take something away from Franklin, piece by piece, and Franklin, despite the mounting pressure, refused to fold. That durability, the trait that had defined his career, was on full display. He absorbed the shots, shook his head, tried to push back when he could. But there was a growing sense that he was being pulled into deep waters, exactly where Itauma wanted him. The third round told a different story, not of dominance alone, but of resistance. Franklin began to show flashes of defiance. He leaned on the ropes, tried to draw Itauma in, looking for opportunities to counter. It wasn't enough to swing the momentum, but it was enough to remind everyone that he wasn't there just to survive. He was still fighting, But Itauma's patience was just as impressive as his aggression. He didn't fall into traps. He didn't overcommit. Instead, he continued to chip away, using feints, angles, and precise timing to keep Franklin off balance. And then came the moment that shifted everything. A perfectly placed shot, sharp, sudden, and disorienting, landed around the temple. It wasn't just the impact, it was the placement. The kind of punch that scrambles your senses, that makes the world feel slightly off for a split second. Franklin went down. Not dramatically, but heavily enough to signal real trouble. The crowd felt it. The energy surged. This was the opening Itauma had been working toward. As the round closed, Franklin managed to survive, but the damage was evident. He returned to his corner carrying more than just physical fatigue. There was a mental toll beginning to show, a subtle shift in posture and expression. The fight was slipping away, and he knew it. Moving into the fourth round, the narrative was clear. Itauma was in control, but the question remained, when would he finish it? Franklin tried to rally. He targeted the body, landed a few decent shots, showed glimpses of the fighter who had built his reputation on toughness and endurance. For a brief moment, it looked like he might extend the fight further, maybe even push Itauma into unfamiliar territory. But Itauma's response was immediate. He tightened his defense, slipped shots with ease, and returned fire with combinations that came from unpredictable angles. It wasn't just power, it was creativity. Punches looping around guards, hooks coming from above, shots that seemed to arrive before Franklin could even react. There was a growing inevitability to it all. Itauma wasn't just winning rounds, he was taking control of the fight's destiny. By the fifth round, the end felt close. You could sense it in the way Itauma moved, calm, focused, almost predatory. He wasn't rushing, but he wasn't letting up either. Every movement was deliberate, every punch a step closer to the finish. Franklin, still brave, still standing, was now in survival mode. His resistance had carried him this far, but the cumulative effect of the punishment was undeniable. The body, shots, the headshots, the constant pressure, it was all adding up. And then it happened. A single moment, a single shot, clean, precise, devastating. The kind of punch that doesn't need a follow-up, the kind that ends fights instantly. Franklin went down, and this time there was no recovery, no shaking it off, no getting back into the fight. The referee stepped in, and just like that, it was over. Moses Itauma had done it, a fifth-round knockout, a statement performance. But it wasn't just the result that mattered, it was how he got there. The control, the intelligence, the composure under pressure. This wasn't just a young fighter with potential. This was someone who looked ready for the next level, someone who carried himself like a future champion. As he stood in the ring, the realization began to settle in. 14 fights, 14 wins. And now, a performance that would echo far beyond this night. The question that lingered wasn't whether he had talent. That was already clear. The question was just how far he could go. Could he dominate the division? Could he become the face of heavyweight boxing? Could he live up to the enormous expectations that now followed him? Because nights like this don't just build careers, they define them. And as the lights dimmed and the echoes of the crowd began to fade, one thing was certain. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of something much bigger. So, what do you think? Are we truly looking at the future of the heavyweight division in Moses Itauma? Can anyone slow him down at this stage? Or is it only a matter of time before he reaches the very top? Let me know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep story-driven fight coverage.